All right, this video is going to be how to clean the burner or replace the burner of an RUC98IP Rinnai tankless water heater. I don't think it matters that it's indoor and propane. The I is for indoor. If you have an exterior one, that'll be an E, and if you have natural gas, that'll be an N, but it is a condensing unit, which might matter. Now, this is really a supplemental video. This video on YouTube is really the just greatest video ever. It was done. He calls himself Mike the Rinnai guy. His channel is That Tankless Guy. He shows you how to clean an RU9. Now, it's listed as RU98. His unit that's back here is definitely an RUC. I think it's natural gas. Doesn't really matter. I can't tell if it's interior or exterior. I think it's interior. But he goes through, as you can see, this is an hour long. He goes through the entire process of tearing this thing apart and putting it back together. There's my unit with the cover off. Looks exactly the same. But I can tell you, he'll show you how to tear this apart step by step. What I want to do is kind of fill in, supplement what he left out, because I did this job and there was some things that I wish had been mentioned. So really there's two things: all of the parts that you'll need, all of the part numbers, and then a few details, right? So for the parts, right, if you scroll down, he has part numbers here. He has some of the parts. He has some of the gaskets, not all of them. He doesn't have any of the O-ring parts. He just sort of mentions, you're going to have your O-rings. Okay, well, you'll have them after you order them, and to order them, you need to know the part number. And then there's the screws, which are very important, and there's a slight problem with both of these numbers, so we'll get to that too. All right, so I can't thank this guy enough. I hope I don't get a copyright strike for just showing us. Go to this page for the step-by-step, this YouTube video for the step-by-step, and then you can just refer to this video to basically fill in all the blanks. So first thing, the part numbers are the parts, all the parts that you'll need. You will need 7 O-rings, right? This is the first O-ring. You're going to need 3 of these. This is from supplyhouse.com website. So you can just pause this. It's got the part numbers, and I took these screenshots on May 27th. So you can also get an idea of whether or not they're back ordered or in stock, generally how much they have and how long it would take if you live near a major city. Okay, so you're going to need 3 of these. 2 of them are one of them is for what's called the bypass flow assembly, 2 for a lower gas tube. It doesn't really matter if you know what those parts are right now, but you'll need 3 of those. You are going to need 2 of these. That's for the main gas tube, which you'll completely take off. And you're going to need 1 of these O-rings for each end. You are going to need 1 of these O-rings. This is for the hot water outlet. And you're going to need 1 of these O-rings. It looks big, but it's actually a little tiny O-ring for the thermistor. So that's a total of 7 O-rings that you'll need. It's the screws. Okay, so this is where it started to get fun for me. You have to have these special white coated, because these get hot, they have a special coating. They're not exactly cheap. You're going to need 15 of these so-called short white coated screws. Right? Notice the numbers 109, 210. All right, in his description, the short screws, he has them 109, 102. Somehow he just dyslexia, that 2 got, it was supposed to be 210. So that was a little bit of apprehension when you're trying to find the screw. And someone did notice this way down here in the comments somewhere. I can't find 102, and someone wrote, yeah, it's a typo. It is 210 is the correct number. Okay, so that was a little bit of problem with that video. All right, so you will need, as he says in the videos, 15 of these. Right? And then you have the long white coated screws, and you're going to need 10 of these. Okay, so this was also a bit of a problem. In his video, in his part number, he has this screw number listed. When you go to supplyhouse.com, that's as you know, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you've been there many times. It's a very good website. For all of their parts, including these Rinnai parts, there's a box that says right here, will this work with my unit? You click on it, and there's just, it's amazing how thorough it is. It has thousands of tankless unit model numbers. My model number, your model number, if you're listening to this, RUC98, in any version of it, i.e. propane, natural gas, RUC98 IP in my case, is not listed as being compatible with this. And I am sure he was working on an RUC98. So I went back and forth. And by the way, every other part, when I search it, comes up as being compatible with my unit, not this screw. So I had to get the right seal screw, needless to say. And I went back and forth with Rinnai on this, and I asked them and asked them and asked them. And I will say I appreciate Rinnai's help. They did not have, I'm not a commercial plumber, so I'm just small potatoes, but they did send me from person to person, and they did always get back to me. So I really appreciate that. To make a long story short, this is the correct screw. For whatever reason, that's one error at Supply House. They don't have this listed. Also, the Rinnai guy, Mike the Rinnai guy, he refers to this screw as the airbox screw, which I guess technically it is. There's this big plastic airbox that these attach. If you use that term airbox with the Rinnai people, they're not going to know what you're talking about. Just to warn you, it's just something I experienced. They refer to that part in a completely different term. So when I talked about airbox screws, they were like, what the hell are you talking about? All right, next up. Okay, this is really the reason I'm making the video. These screws are not mentioned in Mike's video, and you're going to need 4 of these minimum. They're very cheap. What are they? We will get to that, but let's just say I walked into a gigantic landmine when I tore this unit out of the wall and tried to replace it. And anyway, we'll get back to the screw, but you're going to need 4 of those. I mean, it'll cost you less than $4. Just order them. Okay, gaskets. He mentions this gasket, but he doesn't give you the part number. You're absolutely going to need to replace this gasket. It's the burner sensor gasket. It's for an RU98, as you can see. It's a little tiny gasket, has a little sticky peel thing, and you'll stick it to the unit. You'll need one of those. These are one of the 2 gaskets for the burner, which he mentions, and he does give you the correct number here. That's one of them. That's the other half of them. You're also going to need what he refers to again as the airbox gasket. Again, don't say airbox to the Rinnai people because they won't understand that. But he gives you that number. It is absolutely correct. And he mentions, I think, you're going to need, it's referred to as an electrode packing kit, but it's where the electrode and the flame rod, you're going to pull those off. There's a gasket behind it. You really are going to want to replace that with this gasket here. Now, having said that, gasket there and this one, what you're going to need, you probably are better off just buying the kit. It comes with the 2 gaskets, and it comes with a new flame rod and a new electrode. I don't really know which is which, honestly, but one of these is a flame rod, one is the electrode. The 2 gaskets by themselves are like $13.50. So for another $13, you're getting a new electrode, a new flame rod, which by the time you're cleaning your burner, you probably could just replace these. And I would think that's the way to go. Okay, those are the gaskets that you'll need. Okay, so those are all the parts that you're going to need. I'll also put the part for the burner on there if you are going to replace it or clean it. So what I did is I watched the video, and well, this is going to seem maybe a little nerdy, but it's it's an hour long. I mean, I'm just a DIYer and not a very good one at that. So I went through step by step because I mean, you are going to tear apart. I mean, tear apart your water heater, and you want to be able to get it back together. So one of the first things I did was I just took the cover off. No, sorry, wrong one. I took the cover off, and then I just made my own little video here. This is the little, it's underneath upstairs. It's kind of crammed in there. I just took it apart, and I just took my camera and I just shined it really close to where all the screws were, all the things that he seemed to mention. And I did like a 5-10 minute video here. And that turned out to be very useful because then I was able to take screenshots of certain clips and certain screws, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so then after I did that, what I did is I made, again, it's maybe going to seem kind of nerdy, but I made my own sort of manual so that I could do this step by step and make sure I could take it apart and put it back together. So here's my manual. Okay, it's just step by step. It's 6 pages long. It's 73 steps. And there's so many things that you're going to pull off that for instance, remove the 2 screws from the bottom end of the gas burner tube, set aside and label them bottom gas burner screws 5A and 5B. Why 5A and B? Because it's step 5. And you know what? It's a good thing I did that because there were millions of parts. And then these are just like, let's see if I can get this. These are screenshots from that video. And I could point to the screws. Here's the screw. And I knew it was the right screw from watching, that tankless guy's video. Another point here and so on. So maybe it seems kind of silly, but I am really glad that I did that because this is what it looked like when I tore it out. I mean, there's the unit completely torn out and there's pieces. There was, I don't know, 15, 20 pieces of paper that I labeled. And I put, I don't know if we could zoom up on that or not, but I mean, you could kind of see it's labeled screws 24 A, B, C, D's from step 24, right? And again, it probably seems dumb, but I am so glad that I did that because once I went to put it back together, I started at the end and these went in first, then those went back in second, and I just went reverse order and it really made it nice. So anyway, that's just something that I did. Right. Okay. Now, I was going to originally take it out and clean it because I was getting error 12s and I think an 11 at some point, and it was 10 years old. It's a seasonal residence, so it's only used 6 months of the year, but it's used pretty heavily. So I was going to clean it. Then I read in the video comments, right? So I read all of the comments down here, and this one in particular really struck me, right? And he goes on to say here that, he took it apart. The burner didn't really look that bad, but when he took it apart, right here, he says, there's a fine mesh screen inside the burner upstream of the ceramic plates, which means I'll show you what it looks like when it's apart. You can't see, this is sort of behind the plates that you can see, so you can't really see that until you tear it apart. And there was a bunch of debris trapped in there. And the bottom line is this: there's zero chance that compressed air and vacuuming is going to clean this out or solve the problem long term. So what the Rinnai guy does is he shows you to take it apart, and then he tells you to blow compressed air in there and vacuum it out. So when I read that, I was like, well, if that's the case, then I don't know. So he goes on to say that he just purchased a new burner. So going back to supplyhouse.com, I mean, we need 15 of these screws and 10 of these, 255. So those 25 screws are $46 roughly, just for the screws. So the burner out of a $2,000 tankless heater, if the screws are $46, the burner is going to be, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So when I went to Supply House and I said, well, how much is the burner? $52. It doesn't make sense. And this is for the propane. The natural gas is about $7 more. And this is on May 27th when I took the screenshot. I actually ordered a burner in January, 4 months earlier, and back then it was $44. I don't know, maybe because of tariffs or something, it's gone up. This is from Japan. It's labeled with Japanese lettering. But I ordered actually 2 burners because I was just amazed at how cheap it was. And if my original burner still works, it's giving me some error codes, but it still works, lasted 10 years, and I figured, I'm just going to get 2 burners and I'll never have to worry about that again. So that's your part number. If you have a natural gas, it's a 104, and it also shows that in Mike the Rinnai guy's video. So the bottom line is, I was going to clean it, but then I decided, no, I'm just going to change it. And I had the 2 new burners ready. So I went through and I followed his instructions step by step. Everything went pretty smooth. I showed you my kitchen table there with parts everywhere. And there's a few issues. All right, so one is definitely my fault. He says, make sure you've drained all the water out. Well, it turns out for years, when I thought I was draining the water, I really wasn't. I always unscrewed the 2 little black plugs underneath, the 2 drain plugs. That doesn't nearly drain at all. So this is the bottom of the heat exchanger, the lower heat exchanger. And when you drain this completely, I would say go to the manual. There's some specific instructions. It's more than just the 2 drain plugs. But here I've started it. This is a screenshot. I've started to take some stuff apart. The main gas tube goes into this little hole, which I believe is this is the water servo, but that was a gas tube. So I don't really understand the parts that well. This is definitely some sort of water tube. The thermistor was in here. When I took this tube off, the amount of water that came flying out of here was like, it felt like a gallon. It probably wasn't that much, but it seemed like it. So it was a bit of a disaster. Water was all over electronic parts, the controller. I think water went in there, and there was a gas tube there, so that seemed like a gas line to me, and getting water droplets in it, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? If you look at some other parts of the video, right here, here's the, this was a video. I was just taking videos as I go just to show where clips were and where stuff was. But what I want you to look is down here, there's a bucket with millions of tissues. This is all the water that came out. And then I've got a billion tissues stuffed into that water servo, whatever that opening is. And they're all saturated because the water just kept dripping and dripping, and it did not stop dripping for hours, even after the initial deluge. And I mean, there's all this is the controller. I had to take the controller apart because I was worried it just got saturated with water. There was water all over the wires. So I can't say enough. Make sure you really drain that. And even then, be ready. Cover those parts. Any openings you have, cover them to make sure water doesn't get into them. Okay, second issue. Here's the unit when it's pulled apart. It's a little heavy. When you pull that out, it's going to be difficult. I did it by myself, but it's heavy and it's awkward. The upper part here is, I like the laser pointer. Let me get the laser pointer. All right. The upper part here is attached to the vent pipe, and you can't pull it up You can't pull it down left, right. You got to pull it straight out towards your body, towards your chest. And of course, you'll probably have one hand up here, one down here. It's heavy, it's awkward. Everything's unattached. And what you really need to pay attention to is this little thin tube here, right here. It's very brittle. And you can see there's like a brass kind of connection. That is mounted directly to the bottom of the unit. So this is the lowest point. So try to imagine you're pulling this out towards you. This is already the lowest point. This is going to catch on stuff at the bottom. There's a lot of wiring. There's a big wad of wires at the bottom that this will run into, not to mention it will catch with the cabinet, etc. So you have really got to be careful not to, I almost ripped this little tiny fragile tube. It's very flexible. Same thing when you put it back in. You can move this a little bit. I kind of pushed it up and I masking taped it to this tube here. That really helped. But everything else is probably big enough. If, you'll probably be careful enough to take this in and out, but you're really going to want to watch that bottom tube, right? Okay. So other than those two little things, I guess, everything kind of went fine. I had the unit out, right? There it is. It's out. It's all disassembled. Everything's all right. And now I'm going to change the burner. So the only thing, I took the burner off, all the little screws, etc. And everything was going well until the very last screw. All right. And in Mike the Rinnai Guy video, it happens to him too, but unfortunately, as great as his video is, he does not mention what's happening here. So his left arm over here is working the screwdriver, and he's taking some screws off, not unfortunately what's on camera here, but what's back there. And he struggles mightily. So if you go to 24:30, this is when it starts, 24:30. It lasts about a minute and a half. This is the first screwdriver he tried. He actually tries 4 different screwdrivers until he gets it off. And he goes from one to another, and he's like, he says, I guess he just got some fatigue at this point because he's done so much work, and this is just the last screw, and he just wants to get it off to show you inside the burner. So he doesn't explain what's going wrong here. And this is where a disaster struck for me. So, what he's not telling you is that he cannot get the screw off without the proper screwdriver. And he finally gets it off. And the only thing he said is, well, we've got a little problem here. That's why I have so many different screwdrivers. But he's not mentioning the part. He's not mentioning what's happening. Okay, here's what's happening. Now, the burner is off, so I took all the screws off here at this point. This is the circled part. This is the upper heat exchanger right here where the burner was attached. But to get it to change the burner, you have to take off these 2 heat sensors, right? And there's one here, there's another one on the other side. And this is a close-up of the heat sensor, right? So it's just this little thing, wiring. It just touches the metal here. And I think if the metal gets hot, it sends a signal and it shuts the unit down. I'm not sure. But as you can see, there's a clip and then there's 2 screws. One is off, one is on. Okay, these screws do not want to come off. Not easily. Every other part, yeah, you might have to tweak a little bit, but every other screw, clip, tube comes off. This screw I got off. This one I stripped. Right, so here's a close-up of the strip. You can kind of see that it's stripped. The problem is, let's see if I can draw this. The problem is you can kind of get a screwdriver in straight down to that and turn it. It's still very stubborn. The problem is the body of this heat sensor. It's hard to really appreciate, but trust me, it's in the way of a typical screwdriver. You cannot get it in straight. The only way you can get it to the head of that screw is at an angle. And that screw is tight enough that that angle ain't going to work. I could barely get that one off. So you can kind of see, it doesn't look that bad, I guess, but it's stripped and it ain't coming off. And with the other side, exactly the same thing. I could get one off, but the body of that heat sensor really screws you up. And that one's stripped too. So now I'm in trouble. Okay, here's the new burner. Here's the new burner. That's where the two new, this is where the two screws. So the reason I'm showing this is you're going to need to save those screws and transfer them here, and that clip, and of course the heat sensor. So the burner has everything you need except those parts you have to transfer from the old one. So if I destroy this screw, how am I going to get it back in? I need to reuse the clip, the sensor, and both screws. So I was really at a problem here. I mean, I had to get that in there, and then this is the other side, same thing. You've got to transfer the old screws, the old clip, and the old sensor. Right. This is a look at one of the screws that I got out, right, which ended up being very useful that I got the one out. But I had to decide what to do, and fortunately I made the right decision. The right decision was not to rip this out at all costs, because if I destroy it, I'm not getting it back in. I don't have the replacement screws. I didn't realize I needed them. So I just went back to plan A, and that was to clean it. Okay, and by the way, I think the secret, so not really secret, of getting this off is you're going to need a special screwdriver that's like a thin-bodied, a thin neck with a regular size head to fit the screws. But if it's a regular thickness, I'm just guessing they make screwdrivers like this. This is going to be in the way. In the future, if I have to take this off, maybe a pair of mini vice grips I can get in there and grip it, although this looks like it's going to be in the way. And maybe a Dremel and cut it off. But if I cut it off, I have to make sure that I don't hurt the clip and I don't hurt the sensor. So I think I can get it off, but it's going to be challenging. All right, but as I said, I chose to clean it. There's my burner. You can see it looks like there's some scale on the one ceramic plate. The other one looks fine. That thing with all the debris, that's like behind here up against the wall of this. Couldn't really see that. But when I blew this out and vacuumed it, I want to show you, this is actually the new burner, but this hole here is where all the bugs came out. Tons and tons of bugs, very similar to what that guy described in that comment on YouTube. So what I would recommend is, if you're going to clean it, is you can vacuum from this side and it will get some dust and stuff, but it's not going to be all that helpful. Blow into these. I mean, I blew 100 psi into every one of these little packet of holes here and here many, many times, and I could see stuff kind of coming out here. And then stick your vacuum, get a vacuum attachment, stick it in there, suck out from here, and then blow air in there. Just mix air, get that all stirred up, and keep sucking air out from there. And you'll get a lot of the debris out. Right, this is the old burner. There's my new one that I was all ready to put in. You can see it looks much nicer, this plate, than this one. You can see it comes with new gaskets. These gaskets had to be replaced. But, you know, unfortunately I didn't get to put the new one in. I put the old one in, right? There's my heat exchanger. A lot of scale on it. I wash it with vinegar every year. But when you blow this out, that scale just comes flying off. Make sure you're outside. You're going to get really fine, nasty dust all over the place. You got to go outside to do that. And I will say this, as far as replacing the gaskets, you know, he makes a big deal about you need an inspection sticker scraper, which of course you don't need that. Just a razor blade or anything you don't want to damage anything, but anything, even a flathead screwdriver. But I'll say this, um, the what he refers to as the airbox, that airbox gasket, that thing was like just melted, just kind of, just, it was hard to get that off. That thing was completely ruined, soiled, and to get that off of the plastic airbox, I had to spend 30 minutes. I used mineral spirits because I didn't really have any other solvent. If I had known, I would have had some acetone. That probably would have worked better. But I had to rub and rub and rub all of that off. It took me 30 minutes to get that really clean and spotless. And I'm glad I took the time to do that when I put the new one on. But the other gaskets for the burner, they weren't that bad. They were, a pain, but they weren't that bad. But this one, I'm just going to warn you now, that is going to be a problem to get off. Okay, and then when I was done, I put the whole thing together. I put the whole thing back in. I put my new burner back on, gaskets, and I don't know, amazingly, maybe because of my system with my manual that I wrote out, but whatever it was, I got that whole thing back together. There weren't any parts left over. There was no water leaks, no gas leaks, and it worked. And, it's been working for a couple of weeks. It seemed like the water came out a little bit hotter, although that's almost certainly all in my head. But I can say this, it certainly wasn't worse. So that's good. Okay, so the only thing left now is what am I going to do in the future if I have to replace the burner, if I can't get that one off? So assuming I can tear that screw off or Dremel it off without damaging anything, I'm going to need a new screw. That is without damaging anything other than the screw. I'm going to need a new screw. So once again, I worked with Rinnai, and I sent him this picture. I said, these are the screws that I need. This is what the screw looks like. Here's where it goes, right here. I sent them these pictures. I sent them my model number. And again, I appreciate that they did respond every time. But here's what they ended up telling me. They said, okay, this is the screw you need. That's not the screw. That's the long white coated airbox screw, right? It doesn't even look like that. So it's a little frustrating that they kept asking me where on the parts diagram is it. And it's not in the parts diagram. So that back and forth on that, but they ended up just telling me the wrong number after a couple of weeks. They said, we have the answer, here it is. I'm like, no, that's not the right answer. So in desperation, I went to supplyhouse.com's website. There I am. It's great, as you listening to this, great source for anything plumbing. And they have a zillion Rinnai parts, a zillion tankless parts. I just typed in screw. Right? And where's it? There's, I got to remove that filter first just to make my point. So there's 12,000 items. All right, so there's a number of filters. I could have gone into tankless heaters, but fortunately I didn't. And I went into brand, and again, this is one of the reasons Supply House is so great. I mean, look at all the brands they have. So I went to Rinnai. Of course, I had no idea what type of screw that was. There's 125 things that are listed as Rinnai screws. All right, so then, now I've got 125, and there's my long screw. All right, that's good. And so the good news is they have pictures, right? So I could kind of maybe order some, see if they worked. The bad news is most screws don't have a picture. So as you scroll down, there's a lot of screws with no pictures. I mean, what is this screw? 109422. That might be it. I don't know. What is this? 649. That could be it. I don't know. 650. That could be it. I don't know. I mean, I could look up in the parts diagram. Some of these are in the parts diagram, some aren't. So, I mean, this was just the most tedious thing in the world. I mean, look, almost none of these have pictures, right? So you go to the next page, there's one couple of pictures. So it looked like it was pretty dire as terms of ever finding out what the right screw was, but it turns out, if we look at this one, that looks like my screw. Now, granted, there are different thicknesses, there's different lengths, and then there's different thicknesses this way. So I figured the chance that this is the right thickness and the right length for my application, maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5, but it certainly looks like the same type of screw. When I checked if it was compatible, well, let's check that. Right? It's amazing how many they have in here. But it works for the RU98 and it works for the RUC. There it is. That's my model. So it goes somewhere with my model. And since it was 71 cents, I went ahead, I ordered it just for the heck of it. I said, what the heck, I'll order 4 of these and see what happens. And the beauty is once they came in, of course, by then the unit was all put back together, back in the closet, running. But the beauty was I had the new one. And I just took that screw when it came in. And by the way, it looked like it was the right size. And I tried it. And it was like Cinderella. It fit. You can't believe how lucky I was. So that is the right part. That is why earlier in the video I said you're going to want to get 4 of these. It's not worth cheaping out on, how much is that going to be? $3.80 or something? I don't know what that's going to be. Don't cheap out. Buy these screws in case you have to destroy the old ones taking them out. All right. There it is. That's all the part numbers and all the things you're going to run into. I hope this video is helpful for you.